Welcome along to this week's LGBT Live at, well, it's supposed to be 5:30. It's now 5:35. My name is Caolan. I'm the manager of Youth Work Ireland, Cavan Monaghan, and I'll let the lads introduce themselves. Gents.
Hi, I'm Barry. I'm the LGBT Youth Development Worker for Cavan and Monaghan.
Hello, my name is Con. I am the Youth Worker with Bounce Back Youth Services, Youth Work Ireland in Cavan, Monaghan.
Evening, lads. So, right, I want to start by talking about yesterday was World Anti-Homophobia, Biphobia and Transphobia Day. So, what do we do to mark it? I know that Youth Work Ireland had a couple of pieces up on social media, but Barry from Cavan and Monaghan Rainbow Youth, I know you guys were very, very busy on social media. How did it go?
To be honest, we weren't overly busy, but it was just sharing the message about homophobia, transphobia, and biphobia, and it does still exist in our society, unfortunately, and on a worldwide basis as well. So essentially, what we were pushing out was some of the imagery that had been put together around the International Day against homophobia, transphobia, and biphobia, sharing, that love is love, essentially. It doesn't matter who you love, but love is love. That your identity as a human being, no matter how you identify, is your choice. And essentially, that's the message that we're trying to get across. I think we spoke about it before. Like, Ireland is an extremely accepting society, but at the same time, there is still a certain level of bigotry out there. And there is homophobia, there is transphobia, there is biphobia, and that's what makes the whole coming out process so difficult for young people. And I think on a weekly basis, we're actually revisiting a lot of the same material, but it is all relevant. The phobias the phobias do have a serious impact on young people and their ability to come out. So. Yeah,
and I suppose a lot of years this day it comes every year, and quite often it goes by without a huge amount of focus, because we tend to focus on the more positive, I suppose, celebration of Pride. Do you think the cancellation of the Pride in its traditional form has led to this gaining more prevalence, or is it just that at the moment we're more of a social media society, Barry?
I think probably the latter. Yeah, I think we're just more of a social media society at the moment. It's always out there, and all of the national agencies, especially, like you have Outhouse and places like that in Dublin, you have Outcomers in Dundalk. All of these agencies around the country are constantly pushing forward the message of equality. And I know, like we were talking beforehand, you did say that the homophobia, transphobia, biphobia has a sort of negative connotation, and maybe that's why we tend to veer away from it. But again, that is what we need to put forward.
Yeah.
Pride is fabulous because it's a celebration, and it's a human rights march. It's all of the fabulous things that we know Pride to be. But sometimes, because everybody on the streets is cheering along with Pride, we forget that people are facing discrimination on a daily basis. So we do need to. And as I said to you before as well, I almost forgot that this day was happening because coronavirus and learning to work remotely and all of these other things, it's sort of taken center stage in my life. So, like, remembering to even have a social media presence for that there was a miracle in some sense for me.
And that's a good point as well. Like, I think we're so caught up with coronavirus and following the news, and once again, your cup has just warped into view, but we're so caught up with all of these things that maybe it was nice to sort of stop and think about people as people. And take that time. What do you reckon, Con?
Yeah, I agree with what Barry was saying 100%. I suppose the phobias are there because a lot of phobias are there from ignorance, and the problem is getting out there and a bit of knowledge. When people understand it's not as bad, we're all the same people. We all want love. We all want a good life. We all want friends. So it's just a phobia. It's the unknown. So getting the information out there and giving the information to young people and parents and in the community is the best way to break down these barriers. Because knowledge is power at the end of it.
Well, it is, and it's all about exposure, I suppose, and stopping and looking at people as well. Guys, we've got a couple of questions this week as well, as we always do, from young people, from parents. The first one came in from a young person who says that their friend has recently come to them saying that they are asexual, but they don't know what it means. So, Barry, asexual.
Someone who's asexual is essentially someone who doesn't necessarily have sexual feelings or associations. They don't necessarily find attraction to any gender. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not ever going to be in a relationship. It's just that isn't their driving force. And that's perfectly acceptable. You'll also hear of people who are aromantic. And again, that's the removal of any romantic feelings towards someone. So that person may just be about the sexual relationship as opposed to an emotional relationship. Again, it's one of them labels. What does a label mean to me or to you or to anybody else? If you're not sure, ask the person themselves what it means to them to be asexual. But essentially, yeah, the dictionary would say that it's somebody who has no feelings or associations, no sexual feelings or associations.
And why do we tend to think of aromantic being? I've heard it said that aromantic is the new form of asexual. Are they distinct, or are they the same? Are we just taking the sexual out of things because sex is such a dirty word?
No, it is just down to one focuses on the romantic feelings, the romantic association with other people. It's more of an emotional thing with the aromantic, whereas asexual is more of a physical thing. So it while they're in the same family, they are very much two different things. And some people can actually be both aromantic and asexual. They might be like me, they might like anybody. I know I'm not. Sometimes when you meet me, you think I don't like anybody, but no, and it doesn't mean
always got that impression.
It doesn't mean that people can't have strong friendships. It doesn't mean that people can't have strong relationships. It just means that they may not necessarily be in a romantic or sexual.
Yeah, and of course, as you say, they're distinct. So, Con, why are we so determined to fit people into boxes?
I suppose going back to last week's conversation, the problem is normal in society is deemed, heterosexual, man, female, and everything else is judged against that. So basically, if you have this ideal in society of a man, a woman, a child, two heterosexuals, everything then is deemed is mirrored against them, and usually it's in a negative way. That's why. The problem is, like the rainbow flag, the world is made up of different people, and that's what makes it so exciting and so good. Different people, different sexuality, different wants and needs in society. So I say, why are we discussing this? Because contemporary, historical and contemporary society is deemed a man and a woman, two heterosexual, as the ideal partnership or the ideal thing in society, and it's not. The society is made up of all different kinds of people.
So it's construct.
Yeah, it's a social construct, and it's been constructed by religion, society, the hierarchy, and that's what it is. It's not what it should be. It's just because this is the way it's deemed by society that things should work.
And look, I know that I wrote a thing a couple of years ago about we label everything, so it's probably just another two sides of the same coin in terms of putting stuff into boxes. We label stuff. And what's the most popular form of label, Barry?
I don't know.
I think it's sticky labels.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
We label everything, and labels stick. Yeah. So we start to think that these labels exist, even though we've just made them up, because the more we throw them out, the more they stick. The more we put things into boxes, the more we believe that things should only ever have been in boxes.
But it's like stereotypes. Stereotypes, 99% are always negative, and the problem is that's where they stick in society. A bit like labels, probably not sticky, but still stereotypes.
Yeah, and one thing, and I've said this 1,000 times as well. One thing about labels is once you label yourself as well, it's extremely difficult to change that. So don't be in a rush to label yourself. Like you might identify as bi, gay, trans, all of the many labels that are out there at the moment. doesn't necessarily mean you need to share that with everybody else, because once you share it, no matter what you do or what you decide in the future, there'll always be some idiot that goes, oh, well, you said this and now you're that. Maybe it's just a phase. And again, all the negative language will start to come back on you. So don't be in a rush to label yourself. It's nobody else. Nobody else can control who you are. So take control of that one piece and don't share so much of yourself to the people that don't necessarily need to know it.
I would say, yeah, look, your identity is very malleable. You know what I mean? It's very flexible. You're never going to be, you're not the same person you were two weeks ago, 2 years ago. You're always changed. So don't label yourself as one thing, because God knows what you're going to be like in 5 or 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it all comes back to that thing about you're not under any pressure to be what other people need you, and the only issue you're really under is to be who you are, and to be true to that. So yeah, in terms of the pressures that society puts on people, well, it's the same conversation as last week, isn't it? It's the conversation about coming out, it's the conversation about normal, it's all of those things.
I suppose we're individuals, and the problem is we are all individual and different, and it's usually society wants to label you. You don't label. You are what you are. You know, you're special, you're an individual. So don't let society tie you down.
Yeah. And again, the thing is, the flip side, there's nothing wrong with the labels. And it's great to be able to stand up and be proud and say who you are. And if you are feeling strong and confident, go for it. But again, the most important thing is look after yourself. Above everybody else, look after yourself.
I suppose going back to labels, it does give you a sense of collective identity. And that's probably what we were missing historically in Ireland, because everybody was, you know, you talk about the old people being cocooned. You were gay, lesbian, or boy, 20 years in Ireland. That's basically what you were doing most of the time. You could cocoon yourself. So collective identity is good, and that label has a positive as well.
And look, we look back on the day of marriage equality as one of the brightest days in Ireland's recent history. You know, we looked back on that as this huge day of celebration, of positivity. We look back now with all the colours of the pride flag as this really bright, really positive day. So are we changing?
Yes.
I would say definitely the younger generation have changed. You know, I'm getting a bit old now, but in my days, it's definitely changed. I'm much more open. It's not, I don't know, Barry would speak of this more of me, but they seem to be much more open to it, because I suppose it's more prevalent in social media and in the zeitgeist. That's why.
Yeah, I think one of the proudest moments in my lifetime was not so much the referendum result, which was fantastic, but it was the young people that took time to come home from across the world. Them people changed my life. They gave me a future that I could only dream of 10 years ago. And that Home to Vote campaign back for the equal marriage referendum was probably one of the most powerful things I've ever experienced. Like I remember I actually tagged a Twitter account, a Twitter video, just saying, thanks guys for doing this for us. You've no idea how much it means. And the young person, who was probably 20 years my junior, turned around and said, you shouldn't have had to ask for it. We shouldn't have to do this. Do you know what I mean? So thankfully, the new generations coming up are a lot more open to equality, are a lot more aware of the isolation that some of their friends are feeling, whether it's socially, whether it's in school or in their social circles. And they're responding in a more positive light, in a more positive way. Again, growing up, I had some amazing friends who supported me, but again, that was a more closeted affair. They were very apprehensive about how they supported me. Now it's socially, it's the ignorance and the bigotry isn't permitted, and that's one thing that the marriage referendum gave Irish LGBT society.
Yeah, it always perplexed me how a person could be defined by their sexuality, one aspect of their life. That was always thought was always strange.
And while you're right, Con, while it's a big aspect of who we are as people, it is only one aspect. There's so much more in terms of family, in terms of friends, in terms of all those things as well. So
yeah,
absolutely. Look, lads, we'll ask one more question, and I've got a few of them in front of me. I'm struggling to pick one. Okay.
Big words.
Yeah, big words, Barry. Thanks. I noticed Con called you old there a moment ago. So
I did not. I said I was. I said Barry's experience is more relevant.
Yeah.
Okay, right. I want to come out to my family and friends, and I don't know how.
Yeah. This is coming up all the time, Caolan. Every week it's similar. We have the coming out booklets that give sort of generic information, but coming out it's an individual journey, and we can't give you a definitive formula to make it an easier path to follow, because there is none. We don't know how people are going to react. I suppose, I don't know, coming out's a very personal journey. I can't give it a generic, this is how to go about it. If you're looking help, we can share the booklet after this in the comments down below. But contact me, and we can have, whether it's through WhatsApp, even if it's just WhatsApp messages or Facebook or Snapchat or whatever it is you young folk are into these days. Send me a message and we can actually have a chat about your personal circumstance, as opposed to trying to give a generic. The most important thing about coming out, though, is be safe. Always have a backup. Try and find somebody who will be able to support you if things go wrong for you. And yeah, you're not alone. Give us a shout.
And of course, that backup, you've got Caolan and Rainbow Youth, which is yourself, Barry. Youth of Ireland, Caolan Monaghan are here with their team of youth workers as well. So, that backup can be one of those services. It can be a family member. It can be any trusted person, really. Can't it?
Yeah, it can. And the other thing is, be sure to, if you are going to come out to somebody, that it's not under the pressures of COVID-19. It's not under the pressures of lockdown. Now, thankfully, everything's starting to lift a wee bit, and you'll be able to see your friends and maybe meet up with one or two others socially. But don't do it just because of the pressure. And also just make sure, sorry, I had a thought there and it just disappeared.
Seems to have went in your eye.
Yeah. Con, do you want to do a bit of filler there for
I would go back to what Barry, I'd say coming out is an individual experience. Nobody knows your circumstances more than you. And the problem is, what you have to understand is, your sexuality is nothing wrong with that's you. That makes you as a whole person. And there is support out there. So if you don't get support at home, there's support everywhere else in Youth Work Ireland or off Barry. So it's an individual thing, and you know best. But if you want any information and any support on it, we're there for you.
Yeah.
No, look, absolutely. It's deeply personal. There are some guidelines out there around being safe and around how you might make that decision a little bit easier for yourself. But ultimately, it's got to be on your terms. I think is what we say week on week. But it is like, and you're right, Barry. We do talk about this, and it keeps coming up. And obviously, last week we really went into depth on it in terms of, why did you have to come out and me and Con didn't? Well, because we're straight. Why is that fair? And we could get back into that, but there's no reason to do that, because we did address it last week. What is very clear is that it's really important that the young person or whoever it is who's coming out feels safe and is doing it on their terms for their reason.
Exactly, because it is your journey. Then make sure, if you are coming out to somebody, make sure that, or ask yourself the question, do they really need to know at this moment? Are they necessarily the best person? Like, why do I need to tell this person? Now, if it's a close friend or somebody that will be there to support you throughout, or if it's an aunt or a cousin or something like that, but make sure in your own mind that you're content that this person is the right person to be telling, because again, once you tell it, it can't be untold. And is this person liable to be somebody who might tell somebody else? So it's all about keeping yourself safe and not giving the wrong people ammo to make your life more difficult, because it is an extremely difficult journey. It's one of the hardest journeys, and unfortunately, this is going to sound really negative, but it is something that LGBT people do continuously throughout their lives. When you start a new job, when you meet new people, when you make new friends, when you go off to college, when you do all of these things, you're going to meet people and you're going to have to come out again. And it is one of the saddest things. It's one of the hardest things to do. Like I'm older than 20 and I've done it so many times over the last 20 plus years. It's horrible, but that's just part of life.
And I suppose myself and Caolan were there quite recently when you came out to over 600 young people at the Digital Health Conference. And I know that was an incredibly powerful experience for everybody in the room, for us, for yourself as well, and ultimately for the young people and all of their teachers and all of those professionals around the room who were sitting there, because it's real and it's genuine. And it's you, and ultimately that's what it is. It's an expression of you. And look, really, isn't it just it's your information, and it's the same for any piece of information. It's yours to control. Once you share it, it's no longer your information to control. So it's your decision who you share your information with in any matter. Now, obviously, this is a huge thing that is a huge part of who you are and who you identify as, but it's your information. And so a lot of the guidance is probably the same around that. You be responsible with your information. You protect your own information, because you don't give it to people who would use it against you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Any final words then this week?
Yeah, Barry? Well, to be honest, this is again another recurrent thing, but I have, thankfully, this arena has given a lot more young people the opportunity to connect with my service. But one thing that is coming up and that I am really, really concerned about is young people's mental health. And when we're talking about coming out, that is one of the worst. It's one of the biggest impacts that it's having on young people. Is young people's mental health is real. People are really struggling out there. I'm struggling finding the words here. But I have had a few young people over the last week connect with me, and I am concerned. This is the problem with people having to come out, because young people are facing rejection within their families, and they are facing rejection within their friend circles, and this is very real, and it is happening now. And there are young people out there listening that I know have listened over the last couple of weeks, and it's just very important that you are aware that it doesn't matter that you're coming out. It doesn't matter that you are gay, lesbian, bi, trans, however you identify. You are valid and you do belong here, and you need to just reach out for help if you're struggling, because there's far too many young people at the moment struggling out there. And I personally, just ring me. If you've nobody else to talk to, ring that number. Ring the Samaritans, 116 123. They are open all the time. There's an LGBT tech support line. We'll include all the stuff as we have done previous weeks in the comments as well. But it's really important that you reach out and make sure that you are looked after, because you are the most important person in this journey. You're not doing it alone. Contact these guys wherever they are on the screen.
Sorry, it's going again. I'll just bring it back up.
No, I was pointing at you guys.
Oh, us.
Yeah.
I'm just sharing that poster there, Barry, that was done by ourselves and the Sipsies a couple of weeks ago. This is the one for Cavan, County Cavan specifically. But all of the details on it for our service, Youth Book Ireland, for your own service, which is there in the second row, Cavanamon and Rainbow Youth. There's the number, there's the email, and of course we can share the text line details in the comments.
Yeah, so they're open to, most of them are open to young people from Cavan and Monaghan. So do reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out. But the most important thing as well, it's normally in the middle of the night when you've nobody to talk to. And if you are at that point, there is still the Samaritans is there. So don't be afraid to pick up the phone and contact them. If you're really worried for your own safety, and this is coming down to the very dark side of mental health, which is something that I've suffered with all my bloody life as well. And I put down them predominantly to being a member of the LGBT community. Contact your GP, contact A&E, there's always somebody out there that's able to help you, no matter how bad things seem. Reach out for help, please. And my chair's just broke. I nearly fell off my chair. That was quite fun. So,
but yeah, you're absolutely right, Barry. There's all those services there to support and to help. And if you or someone you know is in immediate danger or in crisis, then please contact the emergency services. Contact A&E, contact your GP, or contact someone you trust. Okay. Con, final words.
No final words. I think it was a good chat tonight, and yeah, I reiterate most of the stuff that Barry was said. Yeah, coming out is very important, but I'll say again, it's an individual thing. If you want help and support is there, but don't feel you have to do it now, because this is a very stressful time in your life anyway. Now with the COVID-19, you can feel a bit like living in a big brother house. You know, you've all this. So take a breath. Think about it. If you want help and support, it's always there. If you ring any of those agencies, they can signpost you onto the next person. So reach out, and that's the most important message today. Reach out, help will always be there.
Okay, guys. That's us. Thanks very much, and we will see you on Wednesday for the parents' evening, and then Friday again for the week in review. Myself, Con, Barry are back here next week, Monday, 5:30 for LGBT Live.